Comrade Biddoes, what is the significance of this photo the comrades are asking?
It's very interesting that this is the first question on anything international, because Zimbabweans tend to believe that everything that is wrong in Zimbabwe is totally internal. It's got nothing to do with the outside world. And I would say that is historically very wrong. If you can find online, I would tell you to look for an essay called by Andrew Young, the US diplomat, which talks about the victory of Robert Mugabe. In that essay, he says, the victory of Robert Mugabe is a victory for Western diplomacy because it stopped the Soviet advance to Africa, represented by Joshua Nkomo. ZANU, in the beginning, and Mugabe were supported by the imperialists. There's absolutely no question. And if you're doubting what I'm saying, just simply go to Wikipedia, look up David Sterling. Take a note of this. Look up David Sterling. Who was David Sterling? Look up Capricorn Africa Society. Look up Leopold Takawira, and you'll very easily connect the dots, because from the beginning, the West interfered with the liberation movements. Now, we've got this very false idea that our liberation struggle in Zimbabwe and also in South Africa was against the imperialists. Although we believed at the time it was, but that wasn't in fact the case. The liberation of Africa, at least from direct control, started in Algeria under French and Kenya under British, which were both liberation movements were replied to brutally by both the French and the British, who understood that we can't carry on in this way. So they introduced neocolonialism. And that is what's been there ever since in Africa. That, yeah, you can have your black president and your national flag, we control the economy. That's neocolonialism, which is well defined by Kwame Nkrumah in his book Neocolonialism, The Last Stages of Imperialism. You can find that online as well. Educate yourself. Now, what happens when you come down to Southern Africa? Well, in the 1960s, the Portuguese, Mozambique, Angola, were not interested in giving a black man anything at all. Not even, how can I say, a token government. So we ended up with major wars in Angola and Mozambique. And now the West could see that this white settler rule was not going to last in South Africa and in Zimbabwe and Rhodesia as it was. They could see it wasn't going to last. They couldn't just back the liberation. If they backed the settlers, they were going to lose, and they were going to lose to who? To communists and to revolutionary nationalists. So they had to subvert the liberation movements so that they could work as the same as every other African country. The liberation struggle in Southern Africa, in Zimbabwe, was not against the imperialists. The liberation struggle was against the local white settlers, who the real imperialists are not the Rhodesians or the Boers in South Africa. The real imperialists are the guys who live in Moscow. Not Moscow, sorry, in Washington. In Washington, Moscow is always on our side. The real imperialists are those who are in Washington and London and Paris. Those are the real imperialists, not our local white settlers, as racist and as nasty as they were. So they had to make sure that the southern part of Africa became neocolonial as the same as the rest of Africa. And in fact, they succeeded in doing that by and large, because they subverted the liberation movements. In fact, the funny thing here in Zimbabwe was that the Rhodesians, under sanctions, built up a semi-independent economy. They built up an economy which wasn't controlled by the imperialists, at least not directly anyway. Control of our economy by the imperialists came after 1991, and that's when we got these IMF, World Bank loans, which were still paying back. So it was only in 1998, through the Congo War, that then we came under sanctions. And by the way, check your history as well. Sanctions started in 1999. Sanctions started in 1999, not after war veterans had gone on the farms. So I want you to understand these things as journalists. Look, understand your history properly. So now, what's happening here? Western imperialism, led by the United States, is going down the toilet. The US dollar will collapse at some time. The progressive part is BRICS. By NATO attacking Russia, they thought they were going to win. They created this war, but now they're losing. And Russia, in the Sahel would have collapsed, but the French sent so many arms to Ukraine, and even their special forces would be wiped out by the Russians, and they were not able to go to the Sahel and send their troops as they've done elsewhere. And this young man, Ibrahim Traore, when he came in, he was in Moscow with Putin. Putin gave them grain because they were starving. But he said to Putin, we don't want to thank you for the grain, but we don't want to keep taking grain from you. We must develop our own agriculture. So, as it was in the 60s and 70s with the Soviet Union, now Russia is supporting Africa. And not just taking, but it's helping them build their economies. BRICS is helping them build the economies. So the world as a whole is in the process of change. And we must see where we're going to be within that process. And it's no use us like the black elite here folding our arms and saying, okay, we don't want the West anymore, China can come and do it, we still take our 10%. No. Within that, we have to say we have our program, which is what the Sahel countries have done. This is what Traore has done. We have our program. Russia is assisting them. It's not telling them what to do. And this is where, by the way, last point, China has done marvels in its own country under the revolutionary government. But we're not happy that the way the Chinese are behaving here. We're not happy with these Chinese companies. So I want to make it very clear that although we support the BRICS as a whole, we do not support any country or any capitalist abusing our workers in Zimbabwe. We will never appreciate anybody doing that. So we will always support our own workers against anyone. So, very last point, the anti-imperialist struggle and the class struggle are very much related. They're against capitalism, but they're not identical. Thank you.